name is Bowers Welch, and this is my Calm 101 Speech 3. These are my note cards. According to the Jason Foundation, as of 2017, suicide is the second leading cause of death in the age group 10 to 24. Teen suicide is a rising problem in America that needs to be stopped. This can be stopped through school-implemented programs, therapy programs, and educating people on suicide and depression. This topic hits very close to home for me. I recently had a very close relative of mine commit suicide. This person went through tremendous trauma and had a very depressing life, and no one decided to reach out to them. I feel that this was a perfect opportunity for me to take the time and research suicide and suicide prevention and what causes suicide and be able to present it to people in order to try to help prevent teen suicides and suicide in general. Suicide has left thousands of people heartbroken. Suicide is definitely an epidemic that needs to be stopped. This epidemic not only affects one person, this affects everybody that has been influenced by the victim of suicide. In this speech, I will first discuss the causes of teen suicide and depression, and then I will lead on to the understanding and educating on depression and suicide and more of the causes, and then I will conclude with ways to prevent people from committing suicide and perfect tips on how to stop people. So teen suicide and depression is a very serious problem that has definitely been on the rise in America, especially in teens. Depression is what leads to suicide. According to Markham Heed, major teen depression has risen to 37% in the past decade, which is clearly a very serious problem. Markham also reported that more than 3 million adolescents aged 12 to 17 reported at least one depressive episode in the past year. There are many causes to depression. One major cause in depression can be early childhood trauma. So if a child goes through an awful event or loses a family member, things like that, that can lead to very traumatic experiences that can lead to depression. Another major cause is learned negative thinking. This is when teenagers learn through high school and friends and other social events that they feel that they are not equal to their peers and feel that they are worse and inferior to them. According to the Jason Foundation, more teenagers and young adolescents die from suicide than cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, influenza, and chronic lung disease all combined, which is clearly a problem. The CDC reports that from 1999 to 2017, the suicide rate among boys aged 10 to 14 grew from 1.9% per 1,000 people to 3.3%, which is clearly a very rising number. Suicide is a very serious problem that people do need to be educated about. Depression and suicide are both very complex topics that go into depth, and it must be understood in order to prevent these things from happening. Depression is a growing problem in the United States, and many teens are struggling to be able to cope with this problem. It is estimated that about 20% of all teens experience some type of depression in their life as they reach adulthood. Depression can be very normal. It is a common thing that many people can have, but it becomes a disease when people's problems become excessive and consumes their daily life, and they cannot find any joy in their life. Young people who have experienced trauma and other horrible things is mostly those people are the ones who are usually diagnosed with major depression and things like that. According to Phyllis Fraggles, 50% of parents are unaware that 11 to 17-year-olds are having suicidal thoughts. Younger teens are more likely than older to deny to their parents that they are thinking about suicide. There are many solutions to help prevent suicide and lower depression. There are several websites and hotlines that are used and are now accessible now. One very popular is a suicide hotline. That is a worldwide known number. This is used to prevent teens from committing suicide every day. Middle schools and specific high schools have also been very strict on teaching their kids about suicide and depression and teaching them ways to cope and avoid suicide and talking to their parents about it. Suicide is a worldwide problem, especially for teens. Depression is not something that should be taken lightly. This can lead to very awful things such as suicide. Teen suicide is a problem that must be fixed. Luckily, the U.S. is becoming more aware and educated on suicide. Schools are focusing on teaching their teens the effects and causes of suicide. It's a very important thing to help students and teens understand the effects of suicide because no teenager deserves to end their life themselves. And that is my speech.